It's your weekly dose of confessions. Coming up, a bit of this.
I do remember that match very well, yeah.
There was a whole tournament.
And some of this.
If someone should take thine brogues, I shall spend the rest of the time in thy flip-flops.
This is a download from the BBC. To find out more, including our terms of use, go to bbc.co.uk/Radio 2.
Hello and welcome to another Confessions podcast. This week's concise collection of terrible tales includes a football farce, a shoe shake-up, a famous fib, and some gambling gone wrong. Here it all comes. The confessional is gathered one more time. We all missed each other very much while we were all away.
Well, I know I did.
Yes, we missed you, Mother Superior. Missed you, Sister Rebecca. Oi, Brother Matt, missed you
I was
too.
still here.
Pay
Watching the football.
Pay attention, mate.
Yeah.
Look, this is a football-related...
Oh, is it?
Yes, football-related story.
Great.
Oh, well, that's great to come back to a football confession. I'm really enjoying that.
Father Simon and your sports-loving collective. This is from Rick, by the way. Thank you, Rick, for
Thanks,
tonight's
Rick,
tale.
yeah.
With football tournament season with us again, it is with heavy heart that I write to confess a misdemeanour from 10 years ago during the World Cup of Japan and South Korea. You remember that very, very much.
I do remember that match very well, yeah.
There was a whole tournament. It wasn't Japan against South Korea. It was...
Oh.
The World Cup was in Japan and South Korea.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was a match.
It's 2002 and I was in my early 20s, says Rick, and working in a call centre in northern England. It was a relatively boring job, and the moribund days were made bearable by the camaraderie between the lads in the office. There was a group of about 10 of us, and we'd formed a strong bond. That summer, the bosses had decided that because the World Cup in Japan and South Korea was going to be on in the mornings, the best way to avoid people taking sickies for the England games was to make arrangements for us to watch it in the main boardroom via a projector. This was a result. So the first game passed without incident, a 1-1 draw with Sweden. Same as it ever was. However, after we watched the second game, which, as I'm sure you remember, Mother Superior, was a 1-0 win against Argentina.
Yeah, good match.
Me and 3 of the lads lingered in the boardroom, chatting alone. Suddenly, things became a little boisterous, and someone shoved me backwards into someone else, who in turn shoved me into the wall where the projector projected. This was the wall that was the screen. My elbow went through the plaster like a knife through butter, leaving a huge, gaping hole. The mess and wreckage was extraordinary. Dust, powder, chunks of wall were everywhere. Most importantly, the wall had an enormous hole in it, and future projections were clearly going to be impossible. We did the natural thing that anyone would do in that situation. We all scattered out of the room like cockroaches under a light, back to our desks, sitting in silence, refusing to look at each other. Soon enough, we began to hear the rumours that the wall had been damaged in the boardroom. I started thinking I should own up, but before I knew it, it had escalated well beyond that point, and this was no longer an option. A rumour began circulating that the older women in the office had done it deliberately, as they were bitter, that the men were getting to sit and watch the football rather than working. How about that?
Well, they have got a point.
Well, that's true. Next thing we knew, all football viewing was cancelled due to this terrifying incident. We remained like the mafia, the Casa Nostra, tight-lipped, refusing to discuss it even with each other. There'd been no plan of action, but the path we were taking was clear. As far as we were concerned, nothing had ever happened. The next day I was outside having a cigarette when one of the big bosses came outside and approached me. At this point, my bottom was twitching like a rabbit's nostril, but I nodded casually. All right. I knew...
I've never seen a rabbit's nostril twitch.
Well,
But the idea of it is not pleasant.
I've tidied this up anyway. I knew Kevin pretty well, this is my boss, as I'd done some work with him in the past. He approached me and asked for a light. He leant towards me and said, "You don't know put a hole in this blooming wall, do you?" Well, this was clearly the moment to own up. Now was the time to confess and man up, I thought. How difficult can it be to say it was you that put a massive great hole in the boss's wall that would cost hundreds of pounds to mend? I've heard it was the women from sales upstairs, Kev, I said immediately. Apparently they've got the hump as we're all watching the football while they're grafting. Yeah, I thought so, said Kev. Was it Margaret and, you know, that other one? Yeah, I said. OK, well, if you hear anything else, let me know. Yeah, will do, mate, I nodded. I think I might have even tapped the end of my nose to my eternal shame. So I do have to ask forgiveness, says Rick, not for the hole in the wall of a multi-million-pound business who can probably afford a new wall, or for blaming the women who were, to be fair, having a bit of a whine about the footy being on, and so put themselves into the picture when blame was being slung about. Not sure that works, logically. No. I don't even seek forgiveness from Kevin, who was a nice guy, but his questioning of me was limp, to say the least. No, I beg forgiveness to the lads in the office who tragically missed the third and all subsequent games because of my overactive right elbow. All the best for the Euros to all the boys stuck in call centres out there. I feel your pain. Well, we know which direction this one's heading in. I feel. It's Rick who needs the forgiveness of the collective. What
so there was a fight after this match in the boardroom. They got boisterous, made a hole in the wall.
Rick did,
and then made up who did it and blamed somebody specifically by name.
Margaret and the other one.
Yeah,
upstairs.
exactly. And what happened to Margaret? Presumably she was disciplined in some way. Yeah. I mean, I just think there's no way. I mean, even though he'd already punished himself by not being able to watch the subsequent matches, I think there's just, no other conclusion to draw than you are not forgiven.
Guilty as charged.
I have to say that during that entire confession, and even as we speak, Matt is still watching the football on television.
Just 45 seconds to go.
He can multi-skill. He can multi-skill.
No blokes can multi-skill. I just can't believe the stupidity of people.
It's just Rick. Just concentrate on Rick and his elbow.
I'm not saying Matt's stupid. I'm just saying the stupidity of men who have to stop work. And now you're watching it, Simon. You're not even listening to a word I'm saying. Your eyes have gone in the direction of the television. Is this an important match?
10 seconds to go.
Just get on with it.
Is this an important match? Right.
Yes, it's England-France. I'm concentrating on you, Mother Superior.
For goodness sake. Anyway, I mean, are you joking? Are you kidding me? Am I going to forgive you? It's rubbish blaming a woman for doing something that you did and for having a little fight after the football. Not forgiven.
Not forgiven, OK. I think this is the way it's going to go.
Half time, 1-1. How hard are this guy's elbows that he's able to make holes in walls? And what's this wall made? Crepe paper?
Sounds like
it sounds to me like, frankly, this company had it coming by having walls that were so flimsy that they could be a big hole put in them by somebody just flexing their elbows, and obviously we have a great deal of sympathy if anyone lost their jobs. That said, it's not his fault. I thought I'd have to be there. I know there's absolutely no way I can defend this guy at all.
No,
I just thought I had to. That was all. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm not sure that counts.
No, it doesn't.
Anyway, so did you forgive him or not?
Yeah. Not that it matters.
Okay, it doesn't really.
1-1.
So stories about falling through walls, football tournament, projectors. I don't know, watching sport at work.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. It's confessions@bbc.co.uk, or you can go via the website bbc.co.uk/Radio 2. Look for the drive time pages, and everything is explained from there. This appears to be an anonymous tale. I'm not sure it was originally, but maybe the producer realised who it was from and took their name from it. Dear Father Simon and his holy order, for some time now I've listened to guilty consciences being relieved by confessing all, and now I fear my time has come to request a pardon. Much of my childhood was spent travelling continents to far-flung parts of the world due to my parents working as missionaries. Now, instantly I'm thinking, we're into new territory now. It's our first ever missionaries confession. Well, child of a missionary. It doesn't quite count, because they're probably rebels. One such trip in 1987 took us to a missionary ship, covering some hard-working missionaries on a ship travelling around Africa and Asia, selling books and passing on the good news. This ship was home to some 350 people from 49 different nations. Quite an experience, as all 350 people attempted to get on with each other, living in very close proximity. An enriching experience, as I'm sure you can imagine. At the time of us going there, I was 11. My siblings and I duly joined the other children of families on the ship and had to attend the school on board, much to our disappointment. When the ship was on a voyage, things tended to be more relaxed, but in port it would attract dignitaries from whichever country we were in, and the ship would open its doors to thousands of people who would come to browse the floating bookshop. Whilst in the port of Bombay, now Mumbai, the purser of the ship decided that it would be a good idea to get the carpets in the main dining room cleaned in readiness for one of said dignitaries' visits. This type of deep clean and shampoo of the carpets was not a regular occurrence due to the expense and logistics involved, so we were all given advanced warning and told that on the appointed day, meals in the main dining room would still go ahead, But at the lunchtime and evening meals, we would have to proceed into the dining room without our shoes. We had to be shoeless for the whole meal so as not to dirty the newly shampooed carpets. On clean carpet day, we attended classes as usual, and then we were released for lunchtime and headed to the dining room for our lunch. What an array of shoes were lined up outside the door, all 350 pairs of shoes. We ate our food like good children and had arranged to meet up after lunch for some serious playing. Our meeting point was outside the main dining room door by the stairs. As we stood there, our shoes firmly back on our feet, my sinful nature came to the fore, even as a child of missionaries. I convinced the younger posse, wouldn't it be funny to push all of the remaining 340 neatly lined up pairs of shoes down all the flights of stairs that we could find on the ship. So we set about our task with amazing deftness, managed to push, throw and topple every last shoe down the stairs within minutes of the idea being planted. Each projectile was launched with a cheer and landed with a rubbery thud. A shoe mountain had formed. Piles and piles of them jumbled and assorted. As people finished their dinner, confusion reigned, and our very own version of the Tower of Babel ensued as 340 people from 49 different nations became more and more fraught in search of their matching pair of shoes. I ask forgiveness of the 340 people who spent the best part of the rest of the day trying to find their shoes. Indeed, many of them abandoned their search as they had to return to their work for the afternoon completely shoeless. Some went with mixed pairs, differing sizes and styles. You could spot people hobbling the next day as they tried to make the most of their new footwear. Some came with boots and left in brogues. Some came in high heels and left in pumps. I would like especially to apologise to Eduardo, the Brazilian, who still hadn't found his by supper time the following day, and also to Philip, who had to wear girls' shoes for the rest of the week. I also apologise to the purser for upsetting his best-laid plans, and I'm deeply sorry for leading my schoolmates astray. Father Simon and the Holy Order, I beseech you to pardon me. And this, from a missionary's child. You would... no wonder the world is in such a state. Anyway, it's the first ever missionary-based confession. What do we say, Sister Rebecca?
Well, poor Philip having to wear girls' shoes all week. That's terrible.
And Eduardo
punishment.
lost people. They were, one pink shoe, one blue shoe. Very confusing.
I never actually knew that missionary ships existed. I mean, what a great setting for something like a sitcom. 350 people from different countries trying to get on with each other.
I thought you were going to say, what a great place to stage a murder.
Well, that too, possibly.
That would have been another confession involving the law.
I thought that the shoes were going to be thrown overboard, actually, so it wasn't nearly as bad as I'd expected, that they were just pushed down to the bottom of the stairs, forming this shoe mountain.
A shoe mountain, yes.
And I think that it was just too tempting for any child seeing the shoes there. I think most children would have done the same thing. So
that's a big pile of shoes as well. You imagine how long it's going to take you to chuck 350 shoes?
They're just on the boat. What else are they doing apart? I mean, they've got time to look for their shoes. I think no long-term harm done, and Anonymous, you're completely forgiven.
I think if we ask, by the way, for confessions from the children of missionaries, we will be surprised by what we get. Anyway,
do you think so?
Well, let's find out.
Okay.
We might get nothing, in which case we won't be surprised. Mother Superior.
Yeah, I don't know what to do about this, really, because it's not a terrible thing that they did, is it? But I think I'm just trying to put myself in the position of, had I been invited on this ship, asked to take my shoes off and then gone to leave with a certain amount of grace and dignity, having to then rifle through...
You'd spend a fortune on a nice pair of shoes and then you went home wearing Matt's flip-flops, imagine.
What? Please, no. Oh, gosh.
And maybe pick up his verrucas and all that stuff.
Well, and any other disease that you care to mention.
Foot health is very important.
It certainly
Are you saying
is.
it doesn't matter?
No, I'm saying it matters a lot.
Well, in which case, I think you know which way to vote.
Are you hurrying me along, Mr. Mayo? In that
Sorry.
case, I don't know. This is a tricky one. I would say I won't forgive, simply because I think Matt will forgive, and Rebecca already has, so I haven't got a chance anyway. But I would not forgive.
Okay.
Well,
confused myself now. I don't know what I'm doing.
No, that's
Lovely.
fair enough. Okay, Brother Matthew.
Does it not say in the good book, if someone should take thine brogues, I shall spend the rest of the time in thy flip-flops? I think it does. I think I don't stand corrected on
offers you
that.
a brogue,
And for that, I am going to forgive. Because, they didn't chuck them in the sea. It just ended up... Everyone came together, didn't they? Everyone came together and said, are those my pumps? No, they're not. Brilliant.
Your knowledge of
you on the
Scripture.
ship as well.
Football again, hasn't he?
Yeah, sorry.
You're the new Mother Superior.
He has no idea.
What happened?
It was something about it was about the Bible and shoes.
In fact,
wasn't
the
it?
Bible didn't
Well
get
done.
referred to at all.
Can I just say,
outstanding stuff again.
these last 2 nights, when I've been talking and the 2 men in the room have been looking at the football,
I've been reading.
it's reminded me of what it was like being married. No one listens to a word I say when there's football on.
That's got nothing to do with being married. So... Anyway, here's tonight's tale. It comes from Trace. Thank you, Trace, for tonight's story. Father Simon Collective. The year was approximately 1985, and I was in my 2nd or 3rd year of senior school. She's a little vague. It's a middle-aged thing. It was okay, but a little dull. All I dreamed of was having blue hair and living in Birmingham, like...
We've all had that dream.
That's a real aspiration. I want blue hair and I want to live in Birmingham.
Here's the reason, though, as the sentence concludes, like my heroes, Duran Duran. There you go, see? During another boring afternoon at school, a gang of us were chatting about our weekends, each trying to outdo the other with what we've been up to, usually fictional, of course. It was at that moment my senior school life dramatically changed, because I started a big white lie. For some unknown reason, and I still can't work it out, I announced to everybody listening that my slightly older than me Auntie Rose had just got engaged to Simon Le Bon. I just said it. No one doubted it or questioned it because Duran Duran only lived about 15 miles away, and my Auntie Rose was cool and occasionally went to Birmingham, something we all longed to do. Aspirations. At the time, they were the biggest band in the world. Every girl in the country loved them, and hysteria followed them everywhere. It wasn't until the next day that I realised the mayhem that I'd caused. Word had spread about my very famous, soon-to-be uncle. I was practically mobbed at the school gates as I entered by almost every girl and from every year of my senior school. I suddenly became Miss Popular, and they all wanted to be my new best friend, even the hard and cool girls that normally wouldn't even glance my way. Each one of them was clutching a favourite poster or album or single, and they all wanted them signed, some with personal messages. By this point, there was no way I could have confessed as a joke. I hadn't even said it that seriously, or so I thought, but what could I do? I decided the only thing I could do was to take all this memorabilia home with me and spend my entire evening signing it all. I had a poster somewhere from Smash Hits with a printed signature of Mr. Le Bon's on it, so I could just copy that. So that's what I did. To Mazza, love, Simon Le Bon. To Trace, sorry your dad is sick, love, Simon Le Bon. To Steve, I love you too,
Steve?
Simon Le Bon.
A lot of boys liked Duran Duran.
Did they?
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. Well done, Steve.
Yeah, some boys had blue hair and lived in Birmingham too.
Yes, quite right too.
And so on, says Trace. Posters, T-shirts, undergarments of assorted sizes. What? I signed them all. I didn't return the items to school till a few days later. What with Simon being so busy and all, I thought it would look a bit suspicious if I went back to school the very next morning with all their treasured possessions. These girls were eternally grateful. Indeed, some of the signed undergarments appeared to be put on immediately. Then I had to start making up stories to follow my outrageous claim. Where did Simon and Rose meet? I was asked. Oh, at a trendy club in Birmingham, of course. She'd been to it once. Had I met him or the rest of the band? Oh, yes, several times. Could I get free tickets to the next local concert? Sure, I'll see what I can do. I had created a monster, and it was getting out of control. I must say I was very relieved when suddenly pictures started appearing in the papers of Simon with a gorgeous model called Yasmin. But now came more questions. I'm ashamed to say I had to tell these girls he had been cheating on my auntie with Yasmin, who was, of course, heartbroken. I was so sorry, but would not be able to see the band anymore or be able to get anyone free tickets. I had to take a moral stand. My aunt was special, and cruel and callous rock and roll behaviour had left her heartbroken. Wasn't good enough. Anyway, so obviously I have to seek forgiveness from anyone who still has any of these signed items, mainly because I never told anyone it was a lie until now. They still probably think they have genuine Simon Le Bon autographed pants or posters or albums. Secondly, most importantly, I have to apologise to Mr. Le Bon for making out that he was a cheating, flouncy scoundrel. Sorry, Simon. Says Trace, it's a story, I think I've got a Simon Le Bon jacket somewhere, and maybe it was signed
Did you
by...
get it from Trace?
No, I got it through Children in Need, I think.
Maybe it was from Trace,
Was it
ultimately.
his jacket? You've got his.
It was
You've
a
got Simon
signed
Le
denim
Bon's-
jacket with Simon Le Bon on it.
Oh right, so
But it
his-
almost certainly had nothing to do with Simon Le Bon. This stuff happens all the time. Anyway, Mother Superior, what do you think? No, not Mother Superior. Yeah, sorry, I haven't relegated to Mother Superior with their headphones on with a beatific smile.
I actually did something quite similar to this once. I told people in my office before I came to work here at Radio 2 in the business unit that Rosamund Pike was my sister, and they all believed it. I thought it was so ridiculous because she's blonde and I'm not
Yes,
blonde,
yes.
and I don't think we look anything like each other, but they all believed it. And the thing with these little jokes is that you've got to choose your moment, when to come clean. And I thought I better come clean immediately, so I did, after about an hour of things.
last long.
Why did you say it in the first place?
And it was obvious, it's just a joke, and everyone believed it.
Isn't you Pim your dad?
Exactly. I was astonished that everyone had believed it, and I think Trace probably had the same thing. She probably was astonished that anyone could have believed that her Auntie Rose was married to Simon Le Bon. I think lucky Yasmin came along so she could actually say it's not true.
Yeah, easy way out.
Yeah, exactly, easy way out. And I think actually nobody should have believed her. So I think, Trace, you are completely forgiven.
Now the Mother Superior has something to say.
My whole
Existence?
No. Whether I'm going to forgive or not is going to be based on the fact that I don't know how old this Trace was. Does she give her age when she ventured into this?
It's 1985.
web
She's
of
in her
lies?
second or third year of senior school, so she's going to be about 14.
About 14. So the fact is, should she have known better at 14? Probably not. When you're 14, you do make up a lot of things. Because she was young, because she was a bit silly.
Blue hair in Birmingham.
Blue hair in Birmingham. Fan of Duran Duran. Well, you can't have everything. Sorry, boys. I mean, you're probably not fans of mine either. So I would say I will forgive you, but I hope that you've learnt a lesson, because when you start to create a web of lies, it sometimes becomes very complicated.
A tissue of lies.
Tissue.
I think we're going to get... I'd like to have Duran Duran confessions. I think that would be quite good. Pretending, just signing autographs when it's not
We have
you.
had that before, haven't we? We've had the sort of signing autographs before, which is always good.
And rock and roll aunts. Anyway, what do you say, Brother Matthew?
Well, this is typical of one of the confessions that would never work now, would it? Because if you tried this now, within seconds, someone would have been on the internet and found out that your Auntie Rose isn't, in fact, engaged to your man from Duran Duran. I think I like it, because I like the fact that she thought that she would get all these things signed, but I won't take them back the next day, because that would be implausible. I'll take them back 2 days later, because obviously Simon Le Bon will have signed everything within 48 hours, including all your pants. I'm definitely going to forgive. Well done, and well done for signing the pants.
Signing
that
underwear.
would have been a line I wouldn't have crossed, frankly. I wouldn't have signed the pants. I'd have said no. Simon said no to the pants.
Silly word, isn't it? Pants.
Let's say pants again. Well done.
Father Simon Collective, having been an avid listener to your confessions for a number of months, I feel it's time to unburden myself of an incident that I was responsible for in the late 70s. I'm focusing my forgiveness efforts on Brother Matthew and Sister Rebecca, as I fear that since this story has links to various sport,
Oh dear.
I may therefore lose Mother Superior.
No, I'm just fair. If the sport's there, and if it's a silly thing, then I might have a problem. But it's just because it's sport. I'm very fair and balanced.
My girlfriend at the time and myself were coming home from a skiing trip in France, travelling to Geneva Airport for our flight home. As we were nearing the airport, it started to snow heavily. We realised that the chances of getting away on time were fast diminishing, and so it proved. We arrived in the departures hall to watch snowplows making their way up and down the runway, with heavy snow continuing to fall. The departure lounge was already heaving, so we found a corner to sit down and wait a little longer. Just to set the scene, the collective should be aware that in the late 70s, of course, no mobile phones, no internet, no laptops. The only contact we had with the outside world were 2 incomprehensible French TV channels, what with them being in French, and newspapers that were a day out of date. Luckily, my girlfriend had a rather large book to read, and I had my shortwave radio to play with. So, without delay, I unfurled the 10-foot wire aerial in order to get the best reception. I've done this. I have done. Have you done this, man?
Yeah.
It's a shortwave radio confession, kind of. So without delay, I unfurled the 10-foot wire aerial in order to get the best reception. And as everyone who has owned a shortwave radio knows, then spent 30 minutes trying to locate the World Service. Being a Saturday afternoon, the World Service transmits a sports programme, including a live commentary of a First Division football match, so I settled down to listen to what was sure to be the best game of the year. After about half an hour, a rather well-dressed man with a very spotty face stood in front of me, and to be honest, the last thing I wanted to do was engage in conversation, but he smiled inanely at me. So I took out my earpiece and smiled back. "My good man," he said, "do you have access to news on that radio of yours?"
Is this another one of your voices? Because you can only do this and Camp Cockney.
It's my standard,
so this is your other voice, is
It's my standard voice, but because it starts with "my good man," I don't think normal people talk like that. So he could have said, "my good man," but I suspect not. "Yes," I retorted, rather annoyed. "Well," he said, "I have an important horse. It's in a race today. If you hear the result, could you let me have it, as we have a big sweepstake going on over there? We need to know the result before we all travel home and we become separated." I told him that if I heard anything, I'd write it down for him and he could come back later, because we weren't going anywhere. "Father Simon, is Mother Superior still with us? If not, give her a prod," says Brian.
Actually, I was dropping off a bit.
Now, for those of you who've had shortwave radios, you'll know that the reception is not very good. That's the problem with shortwave. Also, since I was not a great aficionado of horse racing, I also became aware that owners called their horses by stupid and ridiculous names. So what with the reception on my radio being questionable at best and trying to write down stupid names for horses, I didn't hold out much chance of being successful at doing the task in hand. Well, the afternoon drifted by and this chap kept on appearing every so often with a quizzical look, much to my continued annoyance. I was listening to a football match where there was little goldmouth incident, and to be honest, it was all a bit boring, whilst at the same time watching snowplows moving up and down the runway. However, all of a sudden, the broadcast was interrupted, and off we went to a live broadcast of this very important horse race, where the runners were under starters' orders. The next 10 minutes or so were an indescribable blur, as the excited commentator screamed and shouted lots of weird names, whilst trying to create a lot of excitement for the listener. As the race concluded, the excitement became really fever pitch, and I sat poised with my pen and paper to write down the names of the winners. With the reception not being great, I had to concentrate hard, but with the race over, I wrote down the names of the winning horses as best I could. Of course, my friend had seen me writing on a piece of paper and came running over, and I duly handed over the evidence and sat back to listen to the end of this rather boring football match. What happened next was quite extraordinary, as a large commotion ensued in front of me, as what seemed genuinely vast amounts of cash were being distributed to the winning participants. I'm talking serious wads. It must have been hundreds of notes, people jumping up and down with joy. Indeed, 10 minutes later, this chap arrived with 2 beers for me and my girlfriend and was eternally grateful, being such good service to him and his friends. I sat there with a kind of smugness, and of course my girlfriend knew I was up to something, and she carried on reading. Following a delay of about 6 hours, we boarded the plane home. On the way, I confessed to my girlfriend what I had done. I had, in fact, made up the whole thing. I handed the annoying horsey chap a list of horse names, but they were in no particular order. In fact, they were in the wrong order. The horse that the note indicated had won had actually fallen at the first. The horse that came second was actually 12th, and so on. My girlfriend was not amused, and the next few hours were spent in total silence. Father Simon, so I wish forgiveness for those people in the sweepstake who got home and found that actually they were not entitled to their money, and to those who hadn't received the money but actually should have done, and also to the horsey chap for the ensuing chaos, who probably got all of the blame. Finally, most earnestly, I'd like to ask forgiveness from the Mother Superior, who, having taken her name in vain, I know will almost certainly never forgive me. But he's tried very hard. He made up the winners, he made up the losers. It sounded as though hundreds of pounds might have gone to the wrong person.
Sorry, so there was a sweepstake going on in the airport.
They were bored,
Clearly,
yes.
They were bored. And they didn't have any means of getting the result, apart from this guy they didn't know, sitting on the other side of the Masters Lounge.
They had the newspaper, they knew that the race was happening and who the runners and riders were.
But that's ridiculous, to leave it to a complete stranger who can't hear very well with his 10-foot aerial.
Well, what am I supposed to do?
What? Don't have a sweepstake.
Okay, I won't.
So it's their fault. It's the man.
It's
the my good man with the horse's fault to hold a sweepstake when he had no means of getting the result. I think it was fair enough. He was obviously quite annoying, this man. So I think, Brian, you did the right thing, and I may have done the same myself. So you are completely forgiven.
He was clearly very annoying. Superior.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be very forgiving, I think, for this, because I think I agree with Rebecca. This man was probably incredibly annoying. If he couldn't really find any other way, or if He couldn't bear to wait and get the results. He should have waited till the next day's newspaper. But if he really wanted it that badly, he should have waited. And I think the fact that our correspondent, what was his name again?
Brian with a Y.
Brian with a Y. That's quite unusual, isn't it? Brian with a Y. I think the fact that you made them all swap their money around was probably quite funny. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it at all. And everybody was probably drunk anyway. So they kind of got what they deserved, I think. You're forgiven.
Brother Matthew.
Here's a message for my good man. Get yourself a radio, pal. Stop relying on other people, random people in airports, to be able to inform you of racing results. And also, what's the girlfriend's problem? She won't talk to him for the rest of the flight, yet she enjoyed the beer. Didn't see you handing that back. No. So I'm going to forgive him, but I'm not going to forgive the girlfriend, who seemed to take the moral high ground, but was quite happy to take beer.
That was our lot for this week. Hope you enjoyed our confessions. If you have one, you can always send it to me, confessions@bbc.co.uk. Or you can go via the website, bbc.co.uk/radio2. Look for the drive time pages. There's a whole confession section, an archive, and a nice form for you to fill in. The download of the podcast for our Daily Mayo is also at the same place, bbc.co.uk/radio2. As ever, thanks for listening. More next week.
If you want to hear more from Simon and the team, tune in every weekday from 5 p.m.